The official report would later say the battalion was lost to terrain, bad weather, and enemy numbers. It would list coordinates, timestamps, and casualty figures with clinical precision. But the report would not say that 480 Marines were abandoned. It would not say that command chose protocol over people. And it would never say that the battalion survived only because one woman decided that orders written safely behind a desk were worth less than the lives bleeding out in the dust. Her name was Captain Elena Cross. Most of the Marines on the ground didn't know her name that day. To them, she was just the sniper on the ridge, the one voice that cut through the chaos, the one rifle that kept firing long after it should have gone silent. The battalion had been moving through the valley at dawn, a narrow stretch of land boxed in by jagged rock walls that rose like broken teeth on either side. Intelligence had said the area was lightly held. Intelligence was wrong. The first explosion flipped the lead vehicle like a toy. The second turned the air into fire. By the time the Marines realized they were walking into a trap, the valley had already become a killing field that RPGs slammed into armored carriers. Machine gun fire poured down from the cliffs. Dust and smoke swallowed the morning light, and men hit the ground, scrambling for cover that didn't exist. Contact left. Contact right. Medic! Medic! Get the wounded back now! But there was nowhere to go. Within minutes, communications began to fail. The radio net crackled with overlapping calls, panic fighting discipline. The battalion commander requested immediate air support. The answer came back cold and final. Denied. Enemy air defenses had been detected in the region. Command would not risk aircraft. Extraction was impossible. Reinforcements were hours away, if they could come at all. The message ended with words that would later haunt everyone who heard them. Hold position. Await further instructions. Hold position that in a valley designed to kill them, as casualties mounted. The truth became clear. The battalion wasn't being reinforced, that IT was being written off. High above the valley, on a ridge that overlooked the entire kill zone, Captain Elena Cross lay prone behind her rifle. Wind brushed against her cheek. Her breathing was slow, measured. Through her scope, she watched Marines fall. She had been inserted hours earlier with a small reconnaissance and overwatch element. Her job was simple: provide intel, take out high-value targets if authorized, and remain hidden. Protocol was absolute. A sniper did not engage unless commanded. A sniper did not reveal position. A sniper did not act independently. Elena had followed protocol for 12 years. She followed it when she watched friends die in places that never made the news. She followed it when decisions made far away destroyed lives up close. She followed it because that was what professionals did. But as she scanned the valley, counting bodies, something inside her snapped. She opened a secure channel. Overwatch to command, she said calmly. Battalion is being overrun. Recommend immediate engagement authorization. There was a pause. Too long. Negative, the reply came. Your position must remain concealed. Engagement not authorized. Elena clenched her jaw. Sir, she said, keeping her voice level, they will not survive without suppression. Captain Cross, the voice replied, sharper now. That is an order. She switched channels, listening to the battalion net. A young Marine was screaming for a medic. Another was crying, not from fear but from pain. Elena looked through her scope again. She saw enemy fighters moving freely along the ridges, firing down into trapped Marines like hunters shooting into a pen. She thought of the protocol. She thought of the rules. She thought of the report that would later explain why everyone died. Then she placed her finger on the trigger. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not to command, but to the Marines below who believed someone was still watching out for them. The first shot cracked, the morning opened, an enemy machine gunner dropped mid-burst, his body folding backward off the cliff. Elena chambered another round instantly. The second shot took out an RPG gunner lining up on a disabled vehicle. Within seconds, she was firing again and again, moving targets, adjusting for wind, distance, and elevation without conscious thought. Down in the valley, Marines froze. Then someone shouted, "Sniper! We've got a sniper on Overwatch." Hope surged like electricity. Elena abandoned protocol completely. She transmitted directly to the battalion frequency. "This is Overwatch," she said. "Get your wounded to the east side of the valley. I'll keep their heads down." The battalion commander recognized the voice. "Overwatch, disengage," he ordered. "You're exposing yourself." Elena ignored him. Enemy fighters scrambled, confused. They hadn't expected resistance from above. Every time one tried to reposition, a bullet found him. Every time a heavy weapon came into view, it vanished in a spray of rock and blood. For 20 minutes, Elena controlled the battlefield alone, but ammunition was finite. Her position was no longer secret. Enemy spotters began to search the ridge, firing blindly in her direction. Still, she didn't stop. She watched Marines drag wounded brothers through dust and smoke, covering each other, surviving. Then her radio crackled again, this time from command. "Captain Cross," the voice said, tight with anger, "you are in direct violation of orders. Cease fire immediately." Elena took another shot. "Sir," she replied. "With respect, they're still alive." Silence followed. Then a new voice came on the line, older, calmer. "Captain Cross," it said, "this is General Harper." Elena didn't respond immediately. She fired again, dropping another enemy fighter. "Yes, sir," she said finally. "You understand what you've done," the general said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. You've compromised your position, disobeyed a direct order, and altered an operational outcome without authorization." "Yes, sir." There was a pause. Gunfire echoed in the distance. Then the general said something Elena didn't expect. "Can you keep them alive another 40 minutes? Elena allowed herself one breath of relief. "Yes, sir," she said. "I can." And she did. When the reinforcements finally arrived, delayed, rerouted, and launched only after undeniable proof that the battalion was still fighting, the valley was quiet. Not because the Marines were dead, but because the enemy was 480 Marines walked out of that valley. Wounded, exhausted, alive. Captain Elena Cross was taken into custody the moment she returned to base, and O1 spoke to her on the flight back. No one met her eyes. She was placed under investigation for gross insubordination. Protocol demanded punishment. But the Marines she saved told a different story, and their voices were just beginning to reach the people who mattered. The investigation began before the dust had fully settled on the valley. Captain Elena Cross sat alone in a bare room with concrete walls and a single metal table bolted to the floor. Her rifle had been taken, her unit patch removed, no rank on her collar. Just a woman in a tan uniform, hands folded, posture straight, eyes calm. Outside that room, the machine of protocol was already moving. Violation of direct orders, compromise of classified position, unauthorized engagement, risk to strategic assets. Each line carried weight. Each line carried consequences. To the system. Elena Cross was a problem that needed to be corrected. The 480 Marines she saved, she was the reason they were breathing. The first officer to question her didn't look angry. He looked uncomfortable. "Captain Cross," he began, flipping open a folder. "Why did you fire after receiving a direct stand-down order?" Elena met his eyes. "Because they were dying." "That's not an answer within regulation. It's the only true one." He sighed. "You understand that command believed the battalion was unrecoverable." Elena nodded. "I understand that command was wrong." The officer hesitated. "You put yourself, and potentially others, at extreme risk." "Yes," she said simply. "That's what snipers do. We trade our safety for time. Time saves lives." He closed the folder without another word. Across the base, in the medical wing, the Marines who had walked out of the valley were beginning to talk. It started quietly. One Marine telling a nurse how every time an enemy popped up on the ridge, they dropped. Another telling a chaplain how a calm female voice came over the radio and gave them directions when everything else had collapsed. Another, missing half his hearing, swore he heard gunfire from above that felt like someone saying, "I got you. By the second day." The stories had names. Overwatch, the woman on the ridge, the sniper who wouldn't quit. By the third day, someone said her name out loud. Captain Cross. That name moved faster than any official report ever could. The battalion commander, Colonel Mason, requested to testify that he walked into the review chamber in full uniform, decorations aligned perfectly, posture rigid. He had followed protocol his entire career. He believed in the system. But when asked whether Captain Cross had disobeyed his order, he didn't hesitate. Yes, he said. A murmur rippled through the room. And would your battalion have survived without her actions? The colonel's jaw tightened. No, he said. We would not have. Silence fell. One of the reviewing generals leaned forward. Colonel, why did you issue the stand down? Because higher command assessed the situation as unrecoverable, Mason replied. They believe committing additional assets would increase losses. And your personal assessment? Mason paused. Then, quietly, I believe my men were being sacrificed. That sentence cracked something open. Over the next week, the chamber heard from medics who described wounded Marines making it to treatment because enemy fire suddenly stopped. They heard from squad leaders who explained how coordinated withdrawal was only possible because someone was suppressing the ridgelines. They heard from Marines who admitted, without shame, that they had given up hope until that first shot rang out. Then a video surfaced that a helmet camera, cracked but functional, captured a Marine dragging his wounded friend while bullets struck the rocks behind them. In the audio, a calm female voice cut through the chaos. Move now. You're clear. 20 seconds. The Marine survived. S.O. did his friend. The video was played twice in the chamber, and O1 spoke afterward. Still, protocol demanded resolution. Captain Cross was brought in for final judgment. She stood at attention before a panel of generals and senior officers. The same men who had once denied air support now faced the living proof of what that denial would have cost. Captain Cross, the presiding general, said, "Do you regret your actions?" Elena didn't answer immediately. She thought of the valley, of the dust, of the silence that came after her rifle finally ran dry, of the Marines who looked up toward the ridge like someone had reached down and pulled them back from the edge. "No, sir," she said. "I regret that it took disobedience to do what was right." A few officers shifted uncomfortably. "You understand," the general continued, "that if every soldier chose when to ignore orders, chaos would follow." "Yes, sir," Elena replied. "But if no one ever does, sometimes everyone dies." That answer would later be quoted in leadership briefings across the force. The panel dismissed her. For 2 days, she waited. No phone. No updates. No reassurance. On the third morning, her door opened. General Harper, the same voice that had asked if she could hold for 40 minutes, stood in the doorway. "At ease, Captain," he said. She relaxed slightly. "You saved a battalion," he continued. 480 Marines walked out of that valley because you chose lives over procedure. Elena said nothing. "Officially," the general went on, "you violated orders. That cannot be ignored." She nodded, accepting whatever came next. "Unofficially," he said, "you reminded this command what the uniform is actually for." He placed a folder on the table. "The charges are dropped." Elena looked up, stunned for the first time. "You will receive a formal reprimand for record consistency," Harper said, "and a commendation for valor that will never mention the word disobedience." She swallowed. "Yes, sir. There's more," he added. He opened the folder and turned it toward her. Inside was a photograph, taken from a distance, of a lone figure on a ridge, rifle braced, dust swirling around her. "You are being reassigned," Harper said. "Not as punishment, as recognition." "To where, sir?" He allowed himself a small smile. "Where decisions matter before they become tragedies." Weeks later, Elena stood on a parade ground she hadn't expected to see again. 480 Marines stood in formation. Some were on crutches. Some wore bandages. Some bore scars that would never fade. As she walked forward, the first Marine snapped to attention. Then another. Then all of them. The sound echoed like thunder, and no order had been given. She stopped, overwhelmed. A young Marine stepped forward and saluted. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, "on behalf of the battalion, thank you for not leaving us." Elena returned the salute, eyes burning. She had broken protocol. She had ignored orders. She had saved them all.